All right. Hello and welcome to Saving the Frame, my panel on a behind-the-scenes look at GDQ photography. So again, if you didn't read the blurb I put out about the panel, this is more about the thought process behind photos, not exactly a technical deep dive into how to use your camera and all that. So just as a forewarning, if that was something you were looking into, you are welcome to leave. I won't be offended. But all right, so I am the person on the panel. My name is Fish. I go with he, they pronouns. And a little bit about my background. I have roughly 20 years of photography experience. Not all of it professional. I'd say about half of that's professional. Same with videography. I've done a little bit of that too. I'd say maybe 3 of that's professional. So yeah, general jack of all trades, master of none. I have not taken any professional courses. I don't have a degree in photography or anything. It's all self-taught YouTube university person over here. So yes, cameras, because everybody likes to ask what cameras I use. I started out with basic point-and-shoot cameras, then upgraded to Nikons. That was my first DSLR 3100s, upgraded to full frame, and then eventually jumped over to Sony cameras. So anyways, disclaimers. Yeah, again, we're specifically going to be covering event photography, which is different from, food photography, portraits. There's all different types of photography, but we'll be specifically covering GDQ and how it relates to events. Another disclaimer with all of the bullet points over here. You can probably show somebody this recording or things I'm telling you, and they'll pick apart everything I have to say. So take it with a grain of salt. It might be right. If in this context, it might be wrong. Who knows? It's a very subjective art form, I'd call it. But yeah. So, anyways, to go over this topic, I was trying to figure out how to talk about this. So I decided to break it down into the basic questions: who, what, where, when, why, how, and that is the format that we'll be moving forward with. So, first question, who? Who are we taking photos of? Who is taking the photos? Hopefully that's pretty obvious. You are the one taking photos. If you have a camera, you can take photos. And then if you're here specifically to GDQ, obviously you're taking pictures of the runners, the attendees, the staff, volunteers, basically anybody that's here, you're taking pictures of them. Again, hopefully that's self-explanatory. One thing to note is it's not just your friends. When you go to conventions, it's very easy to stick around the friend groups or the communities that you're a part of. And so I've been at fault for doing this. I just kind of stick around the same groups of people, and then halfway through the event, you realize, oh, I only have pictures of the same 20, 30 people when there's 2,000 people here attending. So it takes a conscious effort to remember to take pictures of everybody that is at the event. Why do we take photos? So this is another one I had a difficult time trying to figure out how to put into words. But I found this comment on Reddit, our favorite place on the internet. And if I pull up my highlighter, it's a nice comment. This was on Carrie's AMA. Carrie's the staff person that does social media. But I think this part really put it together well. It really helps capture the energy for people like me who haven't been before. And so if I can highlight that all. But yeah, there we go. So I'd say the end goal, at least in regards to GDQ photography, is to help raise money for the charity. And if photography in some way can help do that, then that makes our job worth it. And So that can relate in a lot of ways as in regards to this comment about how it captures the energy for people who have not been before. So that can apply to the attendees, the volunteers, the sponsors, potential sponsors, literally anyone who has not been before. And so you think about MSF or Doritos, they're a sponsor now or whatever. And so like if they're giving us money to run this event, we want to make sure we shine them in a good light. and they're also probably wondering, if they haven't heard of GDQ before, what happens at these events. And so giving them clips of speed runs is nice. It's the core part of GDQ, but if they're going to be sending us boatloads of money and they know other stuff is happening at this event, we want to show that off. So we want to, again, the end goal is to raise money for the charity. And so photography is just one of the many ways that we can do that. Why did I put this picture? Oh, okay, yes. So this is an example of why we take photography and how it can drum up excitement. This was from GDQ, this past one, and I was just walking around the arcade taking pictures. I have no idea who this guy is, but he had a full combo. It's like, okay, cool, take a picture of it, whatever. And this was on like the second day, I think. And then after the finale, the people who run the arcade came up to me and they said, "Oh, hey, you took a picture of our son, and he was so hyped about it, and he was sharing it with all his friends." And like they're just going on, they're so excited about this picture. And so it's one of those things where you don't know the impact your pictures will have. I mean, it would be nice if we always were able to get credit or were able to hear all the stories behind each picture, but the reality is you just won't. And so it's kind of nice just to hear those stories every once in a while and realize that your photos do actually mean something. They are providing a tangible benefit to GDQ. All right. So, what are we taking pictures of? So, we have a little diagram here with our pyramid. Get familiar with this pyramid because it's going to be on the next few slides. But again, we'll start at the bottom. It should be relatively obvious. We're here to capture the event. That's a common question, again, for sponsors mostly. They're like, if we're giving you money, like, what are you doing with it? What is happening at this event? And so getting those pictures around the venue of the casual room behind you all help promote that. So yes, documenting general off-screen events that people can't see on the stream. Going up one level, we have memories, and that's kind of like those bigger moments. It doesn't have to be a huge moment, just like people having fun, people, doing something unique. You walk around the casual room, you'll see people with 4 hands on one controller trying to beat a game. It's just like, oh, that's something cool. You can't see that at home. You can't see that on Twitch very often. Having people together in a physical space and capturing those moments for them. Oh yes, I'm just reiterating all my points here. Fun moments, people having a good time, and highlights. And these are probably the things you think of when you're thinking highlights. So that's like the first day, everybody rushes into the room, everybody's all excited. World records, when the runner pops off, starts jumping up and down or whatever. Who's that? Carsey at the last SGDQ, he started fist pumping. He ran up and down the aisles because he got his no-hit run on RE2. So that was definitely a highlight. There's unique setups. We have PB coming up later today. He's got a dog is very special. There's electric drum sets. We've had that. That was at the SGDQ. all that good stuff. Final night hype. That's always a fun time, just being in the room, seeing people raise money. On to the next question. So I kind of combined these two, where and when, since they're pretty related. Again, so start at the bottom of the pyramid. You're taking pictures in the event space. That's, again, hopefully explanatory. It's also part of being a volunteer. You're reminded to only take pictures in the event space because that's what we're promoting. And another way we can build on top of this is to follow a schedule. And this is kind of a general, just like when is blank happening? That could be very general or it could be very specific. So it could be like, oh, when is this game happening? Or when is this tournament happening? Things like that. Or you could get more specific and saying, oh, when is the top 8 of the Kronkle tournament happening? Crokinole, sorry. So you can set your schedule to remind yourself to be at these specific moments where you would expect there to be a core memory or a highlight so that you can... sure, yes. This could be a event that you want to capture. So, and then on top of schedule, there's always just staying alert. The natural... the nature of being a live event is you never know when things are going to happen. So you always just want to be on the lookout for something happening. And those are often the best pictures. All right, so this, I kind of zoomed through the first, 5 questions there. And now we're getting into the meat. How do we take pictures? At the bottom, respect. Respect goes a long way. There's so many different aspects to this, and this doesn't relate just to GDQ. It's just like photography in general. Like you can't take photos of stuff if you're not in the room. So you have to be in the room, and if you're going to be in the room, you obviously have to respect the people and the people you're sharing the space with. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a new photographer come in and they're like brand new to photography. They haven't, it's like their first gig or whatever, and they show up and they act like they own the place. So like, oh, I have all this fancy gear now, I know how to use it, and so I'm just gonna show up everybody. And they kind of like push people out of the way, or they'll get in people's faces when that's not what you're supposed to do. And so the photography space is definitely well connected. So if you start acting like a fool, word will spread quickly. So thing to keep in mind. General personal boundaries, I guess, when you're taking photos of people. Not everybody wants their photo to be taken, or some people always want their photo to be taken. You just have to be aware of people, how they react when you look at them, when there's a camera up. Some people kind of shy away, other people will start posing. I didn't add the picture. I took a picture of at a GDQ event, and it was the Super Smash Brothers tournament. And then this guy, he sees me at the camera, and he starts posing. He's like, hey, look at me, look at me. And then his opponent is sitting right next to him. He's just like, he kind of shies away. So, that's like an obvious example, just if there's somebody there that's excited to get their picture taken, go for it. And then on the opposite side, if someone is looking to stay out of the camera, then respect that, skip their picture. Even if there are definitely times I've gotten good pictures of people, but you can tell that they didn't really want their picture taken. Say, all right, I respect that, I'll delete it and move on. But yeah. Next thing, how do we take pictures? We take pictures of specifics. And people often talk a lot about the energy of GDQ. They say, oh yeah, the energy was great, especially at AGDQ last time. They're like, oh, we're so back, there's so much energy, this is like an old time thing. And you have to figure out how to boil that down into a picture. And at least from my experience, I found that taking pictures of specifics and keeping that in mind kind of helps you capture that energy that people like to talk about. And so my kind of thing is, if I walk into a room or I know there's something that people often correlate with energy, say like a pop-off, like, okay, I'm gonna go into this room and capture blank, and then figure out what that is that you want to capture. That could be, I'm going to capture somebody popping off. I want to capture somebody jumping up and down, or whatever it is. You could be as general or specific as you want. Just be sure you're willing to wait for that picture. The more specific you're going to be, the longer you have to wait for the picture. But often the times that will pay off if you're willing to wait. Of course, don't just say, I'm going to capture the energy, because that doesn't help at all. So, yeah. And finally, the last little triangle at the top of our pyramid is our tech skill. So this is, out of all the things I've mentioned, it's largely, I think it falls back down to the bottom of our pyramid, just being a respectful person. That will get you very far in photography. And then tech skills being actually how to use your camera, being, the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO, all that good stuff, all the dials and buttons on here. There's a good number of people who use the auto mode on these fancy cameras, and they turn out great pictures. And you would never know. There's plenty of pictures in the GDQ album right now, if you went there, that were taken on full auto mode, and nobody knows and nobody really cares, as long as the photo looks good. So that is that. Cool. So now, hello, Sent. What are you doing here? The motto of live photography, yes. Do the best with what you have. Again, it's the nature of live photography where you don't know when things are going to happen, what's going to happen, and you always have to keep an eye out, and sometimes there's just things you can't plan around. You don't have a chance to redo things, you don't have a chance to pose people. You just have to work with what you have. And yeah. Okay, so there's our 3 pyramids with 3 levels, kind of going off of what makes a good photo, I guess you could say. So we are going to look at a couple examples. Looking at number 1, this is an example of what not to do, because this is the practice room, the private practice rooms, which I do not recommend you go there and take pictures, because you shouldn't bother them while they practice. But I figured it made a good example for what I'm trying to show here. So we have a picture of people practicing their games, and the reason that kind of brought me in was, quote unquote, the energy. And it's like, it's so different. If you ever walk by the private practice rooms, you see it's super quiet in there. Everybody's just kind of focusing on one thing. They're just making little comments here and there. It's like you can tell something interesting is happening in there. And so that's kind of why I took this picture. But so we'll start off with what are we taking photos of? We're taking photos of the event. And that's about all we do. We don't cover the other 3 levels of our pyramid here, but we go on to our second one of where and when are we taking this picture. We're taking it in the event space. And that, where did my pyramid go? There you go. So I didn't follow a schedule per se. I was just walking around the event and happened to stumble upon this. And then how did I take this picture? Respect. I mean, again, the room is very quiet. Nobody's really talking. It's not like any other part of the GDQ venue where it's really loud. People are always talking. There's video games being played. And so you realize you're stepping into this space that you're not a part of, and you say, okay, I'm just going to stay in the back, I'll be quiet, I'm not going to get in people's faces with the cameras and try to get a close-up of them or whatever, just stay back, let them do their thing. And so, as you can see, I kind of only hit the bottom level of each of these pyramids here. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I make this a better picture? So do I have a laser? Oh, there we go. So I walk over to this back corner over here, right behind Kyle Thomas, and I take another picture. And I take this one. And again, we're still in the event space. It's nothing super memorable, but it's something that's happening at the event. We are, again, in the event space. And in this particular one, I was trying to stay alert because I'm trying to take pictures of something interesting as I go. If we skip down here, I'm trying to take a picture of something specific. And so it's very common to see people playing video games, walking around the space. But I wanted to make sure I had something specific, like him pointing at the screen, to capture. And so that's kind of part of staying alert, part of the where and when, because I'm listening to what the runner is talking about. And so he's making these little comments about, okay, I need to watch out for my health at this point. If it reaches the yellow, I think he was talking about his health. If it reaches too low, I need to use this specific item. So he's trying to work through things with his commentators. And so you have to pay attention to that and realize, okay, he's talking about these things, he's pointing at certain stuff. So I was like, all right, I need to capture this exact moment when he's pointing at something. And that is the photo I ended up with. Going on to... Oh, okay. So this one is just kind of, I threw in here just to emphasize that everybody kind of has a different idea of what makes a good photo. Again, I'm just giving my own kind of personal opinion. I made my own kind of 3 pyramid rubric, whatever you want to call it. But for my own standards, I'd say this is not the greatest picture. It only hits the bottom level of all 3 pyramids. But I remember when I was sorting through all my photos in the back, some guy walked by and he said, "Oh, that is a really good picture. That is amazing." I was like, "Oh, is it? I guess." And so I was planning on deleting this picture, but he liked it, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just throw it in. And so that's just something to remember. You know, there's a difference between capturing photos for the event and like capturing them for yourself or for your own portfolio. And so when you're here capturing pictures for GDQ, it's not always about getting the best, what makes me look good. It's more about the charity. And so you're trying to show off what happens at the event. And so this is a picture that does that. So where are we going? Next photo. Picture of Adaf and Ruby doing a science experiment. And again, this was at the event. Nothing special going on there. Going on to our second where and when. Again, we're in the event space. We're backstage. I was following the schedule. Again, so you'll need to be, if you have a chance to be an actual volunteer photographer, you'll have a schedule of all the things that are happening. And in this case, we knew we had a science block coming up, and we had some sponsors during the science block. And if you work enough in photography and digital media and stuff, you'll know. But when you have a sponsor, you want to make sure the sponsor looks good. And so I was like, all right, I am going to carve out time, make sure I am available to take pictures during this science segment so that the sponsors, get their money's worth or whatever they want to call it. And at the top of the pyramid, stay alert. I was in the back editing pictures, and so this happened real fast. They're like, all right, quick, Adaf's doing a science experience now. And it's like, oh, wait, I'm in the middle of editing pictures, hold on. But you just have to be alert of your surroundings. And if somebody says something, be ready to pick up your camera and start shooting. Again, we go with respect. We are behind the stage. There's people running the show back there, running back and forth. There's people running the cameras. So you just got to make sure you're not getting in their way. Let them do their thing. Hang back and get your pictures when you can. Again, specifics. A lot of Adaf and Ruby are just running around. They did a whole science experiment thing. If you didn't see it, they had poles. They had a TV out there, and so I'm like, all right, I need to get a picture of them reacting to whatever the science experiment is. And so I'm waiting for a reaction from Ruby in this case. And you go, okay, here it comes. She reacts. I take the picture. And that's what we got. And there is Sent. Hello, Sent, with his ever wonderful wisdom of the do the best with what you can. And in this case, this particular picture, you can, if I go back, you can see there's a tripod sitting on the table right here. And I'm also shooting in between two tripods because there's two cameras back there. So there's like a tripod leg going right here and right here. And so this is kind of one of those things, once you have enough experience or you play around with your camera a lot, you'll realize even if it looks like a picture won't work or if it's kind of blocked off and there's people in the way, there's still ways to get the photo you want. And so in this particular case, you can't even see the, can I delete these lines? There we go. Yeah, you can't even see the tripod leg. It gets blurred out, and so you can't even tell it's there. But yeah, that is that. Hello again. Come on. All right, here we go. This was, I love this picture. And so here we go. It's going to hit all three tiers of our pyramid on the what are we taking pictures of? We're at the event. This is a memory. This was during the final night, counting down to the 2.2 million, whatever it was. So this was definitely a memory people wanted. I would expect people would want to remember. And then in this case, it's a specific highlight of Carrie hyping up the crowd. And so that is that. Second, where and when. Again, we're in the event space. We're looking at the schedule. You'd be surprised if you're not in the if you're not here in person. I guess it was my assumption that everybody would just all pile into the main stream room at the end of the day, and at the end of the event. But if you're walking around, there's still plenty of people in the casual rooms playing board games, just playing games out in the hallway. And so you would look at your schedule and say, all right, I am going to be at the in the mainstream room at the end of the event so I can get these pictures. And then staying alert. Carrie was running around all over the place. She's running to both sides of the stage, running around at the back of the stage. And so I know she's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I know I want to capture it. So I'm like, all right, what is she doing? And at one point she starts, raising her hands up in there. After every number, they're counting down from, I forget what they started at. It was like 40 something, and they were counting down. And at some point, at each number, she'd start throwing her hands up. And I'm like, all right, that's the moment I want. I'm going to wait for her to throw her hands up in the air and catch that moment. And there we go. And then the how. Again, respect. I am standing inside of the kind of director's broadcast area behind the scenes where all the tech is. So again, I have to make sure I'm out of the way of the people running the show, right? Like if I get in people's way, the stream goes offline if I step on a cable or something, So I got to make sure I let people do their jobs. Specifics, I kind of mentioned that again. I'm trying to capture a specific moment of somebody reacting, doing something big, something crazy. And then at the very top, we have our actual tech skill. In this case, I had to use a combination of knowing it's a dark room, so I have to crank up my ISO, which means I also want to crank up my shutter speed because I want to capture and freeze this moment of Carrie throwing her hands up in the air. I don't want it to be blurry. And then at the same time, I want to see the people in the back. It might be a little small on the screen, but I want to be able to see the people in the back cheering as well. So I have to lower my aperture so that the depth of field is bigger. And so that all kind of culminates into what I think is a really great picture. We have 20 minutes left. Yeah, let's do this just for fun. We'll do a quick IRL demo of putting together all of three of our pyramids here. So if I pull up my camera app, turn on my camera. Maybe? There we go. All right, so if we go back to, I can't pull up my pyramids at the same time, but swap that over. Hey. All right, so here we go. We want to capture the event. We were trying to capture a memory, but there's nothing really obvious in this room that would say, oh, we really want to capture this specific moment in time. There's no highlights here. This isn't the... okay, fair enough. We're in the event space. I don't know. Let's see. We want to capture something specific. That's pretty much the biggest thing we can focus on right now. So if I look right over there, we got a nice picture of this person playing a game. And then we go, boom, and we got a picture. Or we have you over here. No, I don't know. Yeah, look at that. See, we're getting a good reaction. We have this guy pointing at him. That makes for a fun picture, and there you go. So it's I say the fastest way to get a picture is to figure out something specific. Go and say, okay, I want to get people having fun. I want to get somebody smiling. Just go in there, find somebody smiling, take the picture, and then you can kind of build off of that as time goes on. All right. Boom. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so that is most of my stuff here. So other stuff I didn't know how to put into this presentation. Keeper rate. So if you're taking lots of photos, it is not uncommon to throw most of them away. And so I'd say even like a 10% keeper rate is like really good. Like I've taken close to 3,000 photos so far this week. And I think I've only posted 250 of them to the actual GDQ album. So yeah, if you're practicing photography, if you're trying to get into it, don't be discouraged if most of your photos don't turn out. Doing research. Researching gear techniques, how to run a business, I don't know, or run photography business, I guess. One green flag I would suggest you look out for is somebody who's willing to point you to other resources. There are a surprising number of people out there that will say, oh yeah, I have all the answers. Come to me if you have any questions, talk to me first because I know everything, kind of thing. And so be careful of those people. Just as, in the same way, kind of like our camera gear, you'll have people say, oh, Sony's the best camera, Canons have the best cameras, you should only be buying Canons or whatever. But a green flag is definitely somebody who would say, it's more the right tool. Make sure you're picking the right tool for what you want to do. And so that a tool is not brand specific. It can be any brand kind of thing. Yeah. Gas gear acquirement syndrome. It's similar to sense, wise words of doing the best with what you have. It is something new is always going to be coming out. It's just how technology works, and so just try to do the best with what you have, and don't upgrade just because something new came out. And that definitely happened to me. If I go back to my slide here, I had most of these upgrades had a specific intention, right? Like, so I had started out with point and shoots, and I said, okay, well, I want to get more serious about this, so I bought an actual DSLR, which is the Nikon 3100. I got my first wedding booked, and I was like, okay, I can't do this with one camera. I need to buy another one. What camera is going to help me get better pictures in low light and all that? So I had to do some research, upgraded to a D610. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, some of my friends are getting into videos. One of them asked me to video one of their events they were at. And I was like, okay, well, my D610 cannot do videos well at all, so I'll upgrade to a Sony. And so at this point, this right here, this A7 to A7 IV, or A7 III to A7 IV was a gear acquirement syndrome purchase on my end. It came out, I said, oh, this camera looks great, I'm just gonna buy it. But I actually had no real reason to buy it. So I buy it. Turns out it's not that great. It's about, or at least for my purposes, it was doing the same job as my A7 III, and it's like, man, I didn't really need to purchase this. And so that was like a couple $1,000 down, not down the drain, but that could have been spent elsewhere. And then I upgraded to an A9 III recently. I've been doing a lot of sports stuff back home, and so I needed a higher, faster camera that could take pictures faster, so I bought that, and it's been serving me well. Definitely not a waste of money there, if you have the right use case for it. But what are we doing? How else do we want to go over? Knowing your subject. So when I first came to GDQ, I did not know much about speedrunning. And so as I learned more about how speedrunning works, all the tech behind it, it also kind of helped me take better photos at GDQ. I think one or two examples. Let's see, like if you didn't see the recap video from I think that was SGDQ 24. There was a shot of somebody with the mouse on the floor, and they used their foot to control the mouse while they were playing the game. And so we saw that happening, and in our volunteers were like, oh, we need a picture of this person playing with their mouse, kind of thing. And so, the only reason I got the picture was because I was familiar with the speedrun, and I knew, oh, he only uses the mouse when he's doing inventory management at this specific vendor. And so like, okay, so now I can watch there's a little monitor when you're on stage that you can see the stream on. And so I'm like, okay, now I can prepare to take this photo right exactly when he approaches this vendor, when he's getting ready to do inventory management. Or like, all right, boom, get the picture. And so that definitely helps get the pictures that kind of stand out, I guess. Finally, never stop learning. This was a fun story. Back in college, I was in a club, and we had a little retreat at the beginning of the year just to do some planning. And there was a guy who offered up his house. He lives up in the mountains, and he's like, "Hell yeah, I support your clubs. If you want to come up here for your retreat for the weekend, that's totally fine." He's like, okay, sure. So we went up there, and he has like camera gear all over his house, and we're like, oh, this is sick. So I started talking to him about cameras, and he's like, oh yeah, I used to take photos, and I do here this and that. And I was like, oh yeah, I was a professional for a while, and so on. And it never went farther than that. And then at the end of the weekend, he goes, oh yeah, let me get a picture of you all. There's like 7 of us, whatever. He's like, let me get a picture of your group while you're here. And so this was when I had my D3100 at the time, and he had all these. What was big at the time? I think it was the Canon D5Ds were real big at the time, and so he had a bunch of those. And so I give him his camera, or I give him my camera, and he goes, he's like, oh, okay, how do I use it? Like, okay. So I show him, it's like, okay, here's the button. Oh, let me fiddle this around with this. And he goes, well, this is one thing you always hear. It's like, oh, never use your camera's on-camera flash, because people say, oh, it looks terrible. It's just like a direct light. It looks bad. And then he asks me, oh, how do you turn on the flash? And I'm like, why would you turn on the flash? It looks terrible. But he asks whatever. I'll turn it on for him. And then he takes a picture. It turns out all right. And I'm like, okay, end of the day, whatever. And then we go on with our day. And then about a month later, we meet the guy's niece. And he goes, oh yeah, she saw me carrying my camera. It's like, oh yeah, you met my uncle. he's really into photography, right? He's like, yeah, she's great. Did he tell you about his adventures in photography? He's like, oh yeah, he said he was a professional for a while. He's like, oh yeah, he worked for National Geographic for 20 years. And I goes, what the? And so this guy with all this experience working for National Geographic is asking me how to use this tiny little, it's $300 camera at the time. And I was like, what? So that kind of blew my mind. And it's one of those kind of core moments where I'm like, even though you have all of this experience, you can always learn something. There's something you can learn from new technology, from new photographers. And so that is me speaking as, this is my first GDQ as staff, but with my 20 years of photography experiments, I'm learning things from the volunteers that show up every time. And so, yeah, I think that wraps it up. Thanks for coming. Yeah. I think that's about it. Any questions? I don't know if there's really anything to ask about, but sure. It is. I'll just repeat the question.
Yeah. So I'll keep it short then. I'm curious about not so much from a technical but a logistical side. During the week, are you delivering edited, finished photos, or just here's my memory card? There's a person at a computer who handles all of it.
Okay, so the question is, as a GDQ photographer, are you just taking the pictures, or do you also have to edit them? Are you handing off your photos to somebody else, and then they're taking care of it, or whatever? Okay, yeah. So the process is basically all you. You are a one-man band, pretty much. So you're the one going out there taking photos, and then you also are the one coming. We have a little photo set up in the back. With a computer, you go back there, upload your pictures, you edit them yourself, and then you upload them to the public album. But yeah, you. Boy. The one. So, oh yeah, the question is, what's my favorite, my favorite picture that I've ever taken at GDQ? The first one that comes to mind is probably the one of Carrie. This one. Yeah. Yes, sir. The question is, where can the attendees see all of the pictures that are taken at GDQ? Let me pull that up for you. It is at, I can't type. Is this gonna, there we go. Photos.gamesdonequick.com. And we have a whole bunch of albums, past and present. Here's the ones from this event. I guess, yeah, if you want to be specific, photos.gamesdonequick.com/SGDQ 2024. There you go. Yeah.
What advice do you have for dealing with anxiety of like potentially missing a shot? That's sort of a hurdle to overcome to get into live event photography is anxiety.
Sure. The question is, what can you do about anxiety, or how can you overcome anxiety? Of what advice do I have about capturing missing shots at live events? After you do it a few times, you come to realize you're just not going to be able to capture all the moments you want to. Especially when you're shooting on your own. If you have a team, it's a little bit different because you can have people just focus on singular things. But when you're on your own, yeah, it just comes down to realizing I'm not going to capture everything. And in general, people are okay with that. People recognize, at least here at GDQ, people recognize that you're only one person. You can't be everywhere at once, and they're understanding of that. Start on the left over here. Okay, you sir. So the question is, would you recommend just using a phone to try to practice all of these things that are in the kind of pyramids I mentioned? Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't mention that. Yeah, that is definitely a thing where people will ask you, especially on Reddit. There are so many people who will ask you on the photo forums, like, what camera are you using? What gear are you using? And when it really doesn't matter. Actually, a week ago at the sporting event that I'm a part of, I had a guy come up to me and he saw I had my camera and he goes, "Oh, I'm really into photography." It's like, "What camera are you using?" Blah blah blah. So I started asking him. It's like, "Oh, are you interested in photography?" Yeah, this is great. So, "Oh, what do you shoot with?" And then he gets real quiet and he goes, "Well, I use my phone." I'm like, that is great, man. Like, if you can get pictures with your phone, go for it. There's nothing stopping you. It's kind of like all of the photos you see on the. I'm on the wrong side here. All of these photos. There's a couple of cell phone photos in there, and nobody's gonna know. At the end of the day, as long as you're getting the photos, it really doesn't matter what camera you're using. So, yeah, use your cell phone. It is great.
I'm sure you know the phrase, the best camera is the one you have with you.
Yes. The phrase, use the camera. The best camera you have is the one you have with you. Absolutely true. You have a question? So the question is, people often freeze up when they see a camera in their face. What can you do about that? Right? Okay. I'd say there's two approaches to that. One would be spending the time trying to talk to them a little bit more. Watch us, hey, what are you doing? What is this run? Blah, blah, blah. Try to get them to talk about what they're interested in. And usually they'll kind of warm up to you after that, after which you can get a picture. Alternative is the opposite. You just kind of hang back and try to hide from them in a good way. But that's kind of my comfort zone is definitely more hanging back. That's why I have this fat lens up here. I generally hang around the edges of the room, zoom in, and try to get pictures of people when they're not looking at me. But yeah, either go forward into them, talk to them, or step back and just kind of let them do their thing. All right. Well, if that is all the questions, thank you for your time. Thank you.